Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here this lovely Monday morning with Daniel. I almost said David.
Almost David. Always get
Daniel
confused.
Naor is back with us in the studio for what's sure to be a transformational episode. We're talking today about giving and the understanding why giving is so intrinsic to spiritual work. This week specifically, we are focusing on the energy of the week. And we mentioned it a few weeks ago as well. We're in this period of the Kabbalistic calendar that's called the Omer. And the Omer tends to be a notoriously challenging time, each person in their own respective challenges versus globally being challenged in a certain way or even locally.
The Omer just got a bad rap.
Well, we'll get there because as everyone will hear from today's episode, it's actually a true gift. And every week on the Weekly Energy Boost, we provide our listeners with the most powerful and practical tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that by sharing what we've learned and experienced with the wisdom and tools of Kabbalah. And we inevitably end up sharing wisdom and tools that can be used any day of the week, any week of the year. So this week specifically, we're in the 6th week of the Omer. The 6th week and the number 6 in general connects to this package of energy, this emanation that we call Yesod. It is basically the funnel through which all energy is delivered into anything, not only the physical reality. It breaks down in any microcosm that you could identify, the human body, the days of the week. There's so many different correlations to where that expression of energy appears. This week specifically, that's the energy, the universe is basically challenging us to redefine, in the same way that last week we redefined our understanding of trust and loyalty. This week we're being challenged to redefine our definition of giving. And so Daniel is here. For those of you who are new to the podcast, Daniel is an instructor at the Kabbalah Centre. He is known for being ridiculously gifted in so many different ways, but one of the unique gifts he brings to the table in the conversation is that he practices what we call tikkun healing. It's a special modality that's a combination of different teachings and paths and practices to help people really tap into the core of their issues, their blockages, their belief systems, to unlock greater potential for fulfillment, for experiencing the light in our lives. And Daniel is really here to shed light for us on the different ways that we prevent ourselves from being able to genuinely and wholeheartedly share. We're not only talking about sharing things, we're talking about sharing of ourselves, sharing love, sharing goodness, wisdom, whatever it is. We'll break it down further, but I need a minute to drink some water, so why don't you take over?
All right. That's why I'm here, Elisheva. That's why I'm here. So actually, as you were talking, I was thinking about giving, and I was thinking about, working with a lot of people one-on-one. And one of the things that I come across a lot, and I think it's relevant for a lot of people, including myself to some degree, I'm working on this, is when we think about giving, right, sharing, I think you mentioned it, people oftentimes think about giving things, right, whether physical gifts or of our time, even but it's associated with some form of doing, producing, accomplishing, nurturing, helping.
Transaction.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking about that also, that part of what we need to the transactionality of relationships these days, we need to revert back to maybe the original intention of why we're not alone on an island, each one of us.
Right. The very first thing I want to start with this episode when it comes to giving, because I think it's fundamental and everything is built upon this, because if this element is lacking, it diminishes the power of all the giving that we do. And that element is feeling valuable by and within itself. I come across so many people that their sense of worth and value is defined by what they are doing or what they're contributing. And on the flip side, when they find themselves in a situation or a period in their life or moments when they're not contributing, or they feel at least they're not contributing because they're not doing, right? They're not helping out at home, or they're not being needed somewhere, right? These type of people always want to feel helpful. They always want to do because their sense of self-worth and value is defined by it. So sometimes it happens that the universe is forcing us to stop that, right? I talk to people sometimes with health challenges, and one of the biggest challenges at times for those people is like, I'm bound to or I'm bound to do it. I cannot move. I need to ask for help. I don't feel useful, right? And this is such a beautiful opportunity, sometimes in reactive ways that the cosmos provides it. Sometimes we can initiate it proactively, preferably, that we get to reassess, wait, how am I sharing? And do I believe, and this is a very important question, do I believe and do I feel, most importantly, that my presence alone has an impact without doing?
Simply by being.
Simply by being. And I think the reason why that is so important to ask ourselves this question and to develop that is because if we really tune in and feel our power without anything external, just our own sense of worth and value, just because we are part of Creator and creation, because our soul is linked to the Creator. It's sort of like the story with the mountain and the rock, right? You know the story, right? The metaphor. What's the difference between the mountain and the rock? Well, it's
if you take the rock out of the mountain, they're made of the same exact thing.
Made out of the same thing. So there's the illusion that, right, the rock is part of the mountain, but it's the same essence. So too is the Creator in our soul. We have the same essence, right? We're just separated for this purpose of tikkun and learning.
We appear to be separate.
We appear to be separate, exactly. So let's say this rock, let's take this example, is now trying to help all the other rocks around, but that same rock doesn't know that it's part of something bigger and it's huge and it's beautiful. Then it diminishes the effect, the outcome, the power of all the physical giving that he or she is doing.
So what you're saying is we're only as powerful as we believe ourselves to be.
100%. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But you know what's interesting? I think sometimes we forget, and bringing up the rock and the mountain and our essence, it reminded me that when we talk about humanity, right, why are we here? That's probably, one of the first things that people ask embarking on a spiritual journey. Not only what is my purpose, but what's the purpose of it all, right? Our world doesn't seem to be moving in necessarily a positive direction, at least if you watch the way the media portrays it. So you can ask yourself, well, what's the point of it all? How did we even get here? Science has a beautiful explanation. Kabbalah says, how did that all get started? What facilitated that? The emergence of physicality, and the Kabbalists teach that there was this moment in the metaphysical realm where humanity was created as a vessel, as a container, as a receptacle for the beneficence of the light force of the Creator. And at a certain point, the vessel, in that perfect union of constant receiving and total fulfillment and oneness with the Creator, the vessel realized the only thing it cannot do in that pure and elevated state is share, right? The essence of the Creator is constant, endless beneficence, sharing and giving. And the vessel's desire was to be like the Creator, to be that endless being of sharing, but there was no one to share with. So it's like the rock said to the mountain, I can't be so connected to you because that deprives me of as connected as I am right now, or as unified as I am right now, because that's depriving me of the ability to act like you, to share. So what's challenging for, I think, us as human beings in 2023 is that so much of our lives consumes us, or so much of our life we're consumed with ourselves, making a living, justifying our existence, our value, overcoming challenges in relationships or health challenges, whatever it is. And we forget along the way that the whole reason we were created is to share, is to give. And so people say, or it's a cliche in a way, but when you can't take it anymore, start giving.
Mm-hmm.
That phrase, or whatever you want to call it, it reminds us that we asked to be created for the sake of sharing. Somehow along the way, we forgot about it. We have this perception now, and you can blame whoever you want, that we're here to receive. I need to amass as much wealth and property and possessions as I can, so that I can, even if you're thinking about leaving a legacy, right? We talked about, making a difference, having an impact on future generations in the future. It's not even about that. It's about remembering that the reason I was created is so that I can give.
Yeah.
And even the wisdom of Kabbalah itself, the purpose of it is to share it. Like, the whole reason that the Kabbalists shared it is for it to be shared.
Yeah. And of course, there's circuitry in it, but we can leave that for another time, right? In the sharing, there's more receiving, when that's the paradox, right?
When you realize that the reason we were created is to share, when we share, that's when we're receiving really what we want.
Exactly.
I see that happen in when people reach moments, not even in relationships, but in relationships or in their personal growth process where they get frustrated. It's usually because they've plateaued in the way that they give. It's no longer challenging them, meaningful for them, a source of energy. And so they get either complacent, frustrated, there's resentment because they haven't leveled up in their sharing.
Yeah. And I think we need to give examples about sharing, right? So I want to mention one more thing about the presence, because I really believe and feel it's so important. I see so many people get confused by it, and they associate sharing only with physical things, and then they realize, like, oh, what if I don't have opportunities? Some people don't even have the opportunities, right? They're who they know, or their circle of influence, it's so limited, or it's, at least that's how they perceive it, is that they feel like they don't even have that many opportunities to share or have an impact, right? And they're looking for more. So also for those people among us that feel like there aren't that many opportunities, that's why the idea of knowing that my presence is sharing, right? And honing into that. So let me give you an example. So if we truly feel and aligned with the power of our soul, and we walk into a room, we're going to the supermarket, we're going into a meeting, or we're going anywhere, we would feel that my presence makes a difference. And we would feel that just with showing up, I'm already sharing. I'm sharing because it all starts with consciousness, right? And it resonates energetically.
I'm just going to stop you for 1 second, and not because I'm having the issue, but I try to listen with the ears of our listeners. And to certain people, that might sound really arrogant. Like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
You make a difference when you go to the supermarket?
Yeah. So that's what I call, ego has two sides to it. We're teaching and we're learning in Kabbalah that we're not here to completely remove the ego, because then we wouldn't have a desire to be even alive, right? So there's a side of the ego that is destructive, that says, I'm the only one, and therefore I need to make nobody else matters, and I need to make other people look bad, maybe even in order to
show them
good.
Who's boss, and
right,
and I'm in
arrogance and pride and all of that. And there's a side of the ego that is very healthy, and part of the spiritual growth and work is to develop that healthy sense of ego that believes that I can be a conduit for the light of the Creator. I am a conduit for the light of the Creator, right? We're talking about the week of Yesod. that is the funnel and the channel of all the light from the upper worlds into this world. And the chariot that represented that was Joseph the Righteous. And it said about him, right, that at least the biblical story, that the brothers kind of judged him because they thought he is arrogant. He is better than everyone else, right? He looked in the mirror and he brushed his hair and he told them, yeah, I had this dream and all of you are going to bow down to me. And like it appeared very arrogant, but actually eventually, making a long story short, after they sold him and all the story, the biblical story, he became the ruler. Right, all the sustenance and the money in the world flowed through him, and it really, the story is just there are many secrets to it, and it represents things in our life that, in order to be a channel for great things, we need to first believe that we are a channel for, and we can be, and that we already are. So it's important to have, and when we're talking about giving, if I don't believe and if I don't value myself, there's very little that I actually can give, right? If I feel empty and I don't believe in my value, all of my giving is actually empty. I'm not giving anything. And I can give a lot. Time, money, people will praise me. But actually what I'm giving energetically is only measured to the degree that I tapped in and tuned into my light, and I value that because it's not my light. It's the Creator's light that channels through me.
And there's a difference between what Daniel is talking about and having that validation come from outside of us.
Right.
I think it's an important thing to distinguish, because there's a lot of people who their self-worth depends on how they're received and perceived. I know someone who has a big place in my heart. I don't know if they realize how special they are. Actually, I know they don't realize how special they are. That's why I'm talking about them. They are just every so often in their lives, and we've known each other for, I would say, 15 years or so, they sort of flip the table and storm out of whatever situation they're in because they're not being recognized. And even though they're bringing home a nice paycheck, they work in a nice place, they're receiving tremendous validation from what I would say the Creator or the universe. Beautiful family, healthy, happy, secure, all of the boxes are checked. But because his immediate environment isn't praising him, complimenting him, rewarding him, awarding him beyond for his exceptionality. And to your point, that performance anxiety that comes from not having the accolades you expect or believe you deserve, what it does is it perpetuates this vicious cycle of never feeling enough, therefore diminishing that which you contribute. Like, that's the other side of what you were saying.
Yeah.
If I know, to the degree I know how powerful I am, that's how powerful I'm going to be. Mm-hmm. When I realize, or if I have the belief that I am not powerful, I'm diminishing the impact I can actually have.
Yes, and not just that. I heard something this week which really blew my mind, and I can see it in so many ways appearing. It's connected to a certain limiting belief, which I like to work with on people, and it is that if we have a certain power to do something, if we have a potency for something, a certain gift, if we deny that gift, or we're to the degree that we're not aware of that gift, or we deny it, or we don't want to fully take it, we will actually create the opposite of that to prove that we don't have it.
Give me a specific. I'm kind of in shock because I learned about something very similar this week. Mm-hmm. But I think what you said is really abstract, and I want to make sure people really get it, because it is.
It's very deep.
It's so profound.
Yes. So let's say I have a certain good influence on people. Let's stick with the presence example, right? Like, I have a good vibe and people feel comfortable around me, and I make people feel comfortable and people feel safe.
You bring out the good in others.
Yes. So let's say, these people, and say, like, tell me something good about you. Me, no. And they get all shy. And why do we do that? Right? Why do we do that? Like, we don't, so many times it's hard so much easier for us to find what's wrong with us than accepting certain gifts that we have. And so the danger of that is that when I don't acknowledge that gift that I have, maybe in letting people shine, making them, then I will attract situations in which the opposite will be created, which will be, maybe people will abuse me, abuse my time. It will create an opposite situation of that, right? Where I feel neglected, where I feel I don't really make a difference. You see, I don't make a difference. And then to prove to myself, right? The reason why it's deep, because it's working on a very subconscious level. Nobody wakes up in the morning and said, I want to prove to myself today that I'm not worthy. Nobody has that intention in mind, but subconsciously, because of the denial of certain gifts, we want to solidify it. And so we create a reality in which it proves to us that, you see, I'm not good enough. You see, people don't appreciate me. You see? And it's not because that's the reality. It's because I have the belief that I don't have that gift. It's beliefs that create reality and not the other way around.
So how can we work on that? I know that's a big thing, because what I was listening to something, I think a lecture earlier this week, and I think, if I remember right, and sometimes I feel so overflowing with all the things I learned all week, but I'm pretty sure it was Michael Berg who said that when all of the parts of ourselves that we're trying to hide or overcompensate for, or anything that we are uncomfortable being or doing, we're actually meant to use those gifts. Like I heard it in a different sentence structure, but I think it's the same concept, that those are things that we're meant to reveal light with, that those are gifts actually, and that we're meant to reveal the light of our soul with. So I took it to a place of, looking in myself and saying, okay, what am I hiding? Right? And I encourage our listeners to sit and think of it in the same way. If there is a gift that you have rejected or denied, or I remember I worked with a student a number of years ago who had some degree of psychic ability, and it scared her, so she sort of shut it off. And we worked together in a way to reawaken it, or to reconnect those connections, so that she could have it now that she knew sort of how to process it and use it for good. But if each of us looks this week with this support of the energy of Yesod, as we spoke about the gifts that we were given to use them for good. And so every episode, I feel like we're talking about a superhero movie. We're here to use our gifts for good. But for many of us, as Daniel was saying, we've developed belief systems, whether we receive them from our parents or school, or sometimes it's even, what do they call it? Epigenetic. It's like it's such a deeply ingrained belief that it's passed down genetically. We can find this week those diamonds within us and reverse the vacuum. Instead of concealing and hiding and deflecting and that false humility that, me, all that stuff, let it go. Because that's going back to my point from the beginning. We were created for this. We weren't created to, write a book or be president of the PTA or all the other things that we may be investing our lives in. Not that they're not good, but they're not the reason we're here.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I share a personal example, because as you were talking, I was thinking about, I worked on something this week, or had realizations about this week and last week, in regards to our gifts and how we use them, right? So for me, it's our life mission, my life mission, has to be connected somehow to the projects that I'm working on, to what I'm doing, and connected to the gifts that I have. So I was making a list. I was thinking, okay, most of it is pretty much aligned with what I'm doing, and I'm feeling I'm utilizing it. But there were these small things, right, which I put aside as not that relevant or not that significant, or yeah, it would be nice if, but I'm doing already the big chunks. And I had the realization that sometimes it's about the small things that we neglect. So I'll give you an example. So obviously I'm a Kabbalah teacher, and I work one-on-one with people, and I teach, and that's the main thing. But I have also other gifts, right? And I cannot deny them. So I like poetry. Okay, I like it, and I like to write. So, and it's something that keeps on coming to me, right? So if I say, like, if part of my soul structure and light, that is a skill, or that is a gift, or that is a passion, it has to be incorporated somehow. So yeah, we created an event in the Kabbalah Centre in Los Angeles, and we will include poetry, and I want to make sure I utilize all of me in different ways of what I do, right? All of me. Another part is I like funny stuff, and I like humor, and some of the people that are closer to me know me that I like to imitate people and do impressions. And so it's also these little parts that we sometimes don't think it's a big deal. It's part of our soul, it's part of our energy. It has to, big part of our fulfillment comes when we feel that our soul's light is being expressed. And I wouldn't even call it sharing. Yeah, the byproduct is it's sharing and it's helping people. But for me, it's more than that. For me, it's like I want to express all of my light. And the flip side of that, what I feel when my light is not being expressed, I can feel like a creative block. I can already sense, actually, I made a connection of, certain level of anger build up when I don't allow myself to express in all my light fully. So it has side effects too. So I'm doing myself the favor when I tap in, acknowledge my light, and allow myself find different ways to express or share it.
I'm just laughing. I want to apologize to our listeners because apparently I needed a one-on-one session with Daniel, and it's going to be broadcast to thousands and thousands of people this week. No, I have to say, what you just shared hit me so hard. And when I heard what you said in the beginning, I'm like, yeah, that used to be my issue. It's not my issue anymore. I know that just with my presence, I am making a difference. And then as you were talking, I realized, I have that belief system that even though I have these things that I enjoy, because they don't benefit other people, they have to take a back seat to everything else that I do. And I think that part of the maybe one sentence I missed from the story I told in the beginning about how did we get to the physical world to begin with, that vessel was created to be fulfilled. Mm-hmm. That's it. Right. That's why we were created, to be fulfilled. Now maybe I'll retell the story from a different angle. We were created to be fulfilled. We were fulfilled, and we said it's not enough. We can't just be receivers. In order to have true and lasting fulfillment, we need to share. But our first job is to receive. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people out here, maybe even people who said they don't need today's episode because they say, I'm such a selfless, sharing, kind human being that, what could they possibly teach me? Or what more is there to learn about this? But the fact of the matter is that most people who do feel they're in service, they're givers, they're kind, they're generous, many times they forget that they're here to receive. Mm-hmm. That sharing is, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is really the user's manual for life, the greatest fulfillment a human being can experience is when they are in a state of sharing. But you cannot fill from an empty cup. It's like another reminder for me and for all of our listeners that no matter what you may enjoy cooking, and the only 5 people who benefit from you live under your roof, right? So just because you're not saving the world, there are chefs who fly to ravaged countries and cook for people, and it does make a difference to hundreds or thousands of people. But if it makes you happy, and this is, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm understanding for you is that if you derive fulfillment from it, it then becomes, pardon the pun, food that nourishes your soul and allows you to do even more, have even more impact, be even more loving, kind, giving, more of a channel, when all of the parts of you, even the ones that don't, quote, make a difference out there, or you can't see, maybe that's it. You don't see how, I don't know, riding your bike. If riding your bike makes you happy, but it doesn't pay the bills, or it doesn't, change the world, so you put it to the back burner, bring it out, because it's going to make you a better channel for the light force of the Creator in the world if you are feeling connected to all of the parts of yourself.
Right. And that's why it's so important that our sharing in our consciousness, right, it's between us and the light of the Creator. Because when it stops becoming about the expression of my soul and the expression of my light, right? When we share from a place of, I want to express my light, there's no attachment. There's no, I need them to see, or I need them to know, or I need them to appreciate, or I need to know even what is the difference that I make, and I want to see, right? I can think of some people that I know that they only feel that their sharing is worthy when it's in their eyes, it's big, it's grandiose, right? Only if, I give charity of that amount, only if I, travel far, far away and dedicate a whole month to volunteer work. Like, it has to be like the specific thing that in my eyes, or sometimes in other people's eyes, needs to be grandiose, and that's really not what it is about. Right? I mean, we will have these moments, but if it is more internal about my connection between me and the light, and it's about the journey, it's about expressing that which I received, and it's fulfilling me, and it's coming from this internal place, then we will see the impact that it will make in the long term too.
Can we talk for a minute, though, about sharing things?
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, simply because I think that there's, obviously it's connected to the energy of the week as well, and we don't always have the opportunity to talk about things like this. But why do you think, or what have you seen in your work with people, what are the main barriers that prevent people from being generous, or from feeling like they can share, again, whether it's money or time or resources of any kind? What do you find prevents people from doing that, or being in that generous spirit? Yeah,
I think the biggest block in this is associating with what we have as ours, right? The attachment and the belief that I'm the owner versus the manager of what I have. Because if I'm the owner, and it's mine, then first of all, I get to decide, right? It's mine. So whether I share with you or not, it's sort of like it's up to me. And if I don't, that's fine. It's not about the spiritual circuitry, right? And receiving more. It's about like what I see is what there is, right? So if I have 2 apples and I'll give you an apple, I'll only be left with 1. And then what's going to be next week, right? It's then from that, all the fears are kicking in, that the lack of trust, the lack of flow, and holding on to things and worrying, and all of that is actually a result of not attaching the blessings that we have, the physical blessings to its source, and take ownership of it. And all the fears and all the doubts is a result of that.
It's so funny that you say that, because when you were speaking before, I had this thought, you were talking about sharing your gifts, and I was thinking about myself. I think I've shared it before probably on more than one occasion, that when I was younger, I really had a hard time talking, not reading a script. I could easily, I could stand up with a note card and read it beautifully in front of 200 people or whatever it was. But if I had to generate an independent thought or express genuine thoughts and feelings, I was very...
Well, you certainly advanced in that tikkun.
I advanced. I definitely haven't perfected it yet. But what I was thinking, one of the consciousnesses I found in the wisdom of Kabbalah that helped me bridge that gap was, the gift of speaking is not mine. It's from the Creator. And I know that sounds so, I don't know, woo-woo, or it's like it sounds so, but let me explain to you what I really mean. when you hear, let's say you listen to a beautiful piece of music. This is how I processed it and then translated it into action, is you hear a beautiful piece of music, right? And let's say it's like a Mozart or Beethoven or Bach, but it's being played by somebody in modern times in the whatever Philharmonic, and you're just so taken aback by the music. What are you really taken aback by? Think about it for a second. Is it the notes, the combination of the notes? Do you really just love violin or piano? What is it? It's the light force of the Creator is being channeled in a certain frequency and vibration that touches you, right? Like, I mean, right. Scientifically, you can even look at it that there is certain frequencies, megahertz, I don't know, talk about it what you want, that awaken certain, right? You hear some music and it's scary. You hear some music and it's uplifting. Any gift from the Creator, any talent, any skill that you have is the same thing. You're simply an instrument that allows that music, if you will, whether it's speaking, cooking, poetry, wisdom, whatever gift you can possibly think of, even if you're an athlete, you know, you're really great. Maybe you're a great, I don't know, basketball player, and you actually help other people become great at basketball, improving, right? That's in my mind, you can also inspire people by the way you play, but you can also help them become better players, right? You can use it in so many different ways. You're simply the instrument through which the light force of the Creator is expressed in that at that unique frequency. So if you have a unique ability to translate from different languages, if you have a unique ability, I mean, I probably should have written down a list of talents before the episode started so that I would have a bunch. You know, you're a great writer, you're a great thinker, you are, some people are great at networking. They put people together, they have a gift for bringing together concepts and ideas and whatever it is. You're just a violin. Right? It's not your music. The people in the Philharmonic are not, they may write their own music, but when you're sitting there enjoying the cacophony of sounds, it's really that each instrument is channeling a song that speaks to you. And when you realize that each one of your gifts is simply that, it's another vibration, it's another frequency, it's not about you. You're just the violin. You're not, you're not playing you. The Creator's playing you, and beautiful words or ideas or chicken soup is coming out, and it's not about you. And when I finally got that in my mind, it made it so much easier for me to detach to the reception, detach from the reception. Right? You don't need the applause because, or as my husband says, I don't make the pizza, I just deliver it.
I love that.
Right? When it comes to these teachings, we didn't write it, we didn't invent it. I didn't have a great idea in the shower this morning, and I'm here sharing it with you. This is a wisdom that comes from many different great souls that we are doing our best to simplify and modernize and make practical and relevant. But everything that we say can be traced back to some book or some teaching or some text. So when you can say, okay, well, we can all do that, right? I can read a book and then tell you what I read. It's the same thing. And when you can get out of your way enough to really be a channel and detach from how many people heard, how many people liked, did they clap, did it make a difference? You realize everybody is just, the whole world is just 7 billion violins walking around trying to figure out, in their different way, what's the music, what's the vibration, what's the tune they're supposed to be playing. And it also helps when you see, sometimes it's easy when you see someone struggling to judge them. Now that you look at them, you think, it's just a violin missing a string, or a violin that thinks they're a tuba, or, that all of, when you really, I love the word instrument, because we really do want to just be instruments of the light force of the Creator. 100%. And that sometimes means I'm speaking. Sometimes it means I'm being silent. Right? Sometimes just your presence can be a huge gift to the other person. So I feel like if we can all tune into that this week and take advantage of this opportunity to level up in the way that we channel and the way that we give, we're going to be in good shape. And we need to wrap up, but I wanted to share with our listeners and give Daniel a minute to share about it as well. In the past, when Daniel has been a guest on Weekly Energy Boost, we've had the opportunity to share with our listeners the opportunity to do the tikkun healing that I mentioned in the beginning, the unique practice that Daniel and other of our colleagues have honed in on and can help people. In the past, I think only Daniel was available to do this kind of work. Now we have teachers who are able to do it in different languages, in different countries. So no matter where you're listening from, you have the opportunity to participate. And Daniel, maybe you can speak for 30 seconds about what does that entail?
Yeah. So in Tikkun Healing, we come up with something that you want to work on. So we don't need to know our tikkun and have everything laid out and prepared. We just need to come up and show up to the session with a topic. The topic might be something internally, some spiritual growth, areas where you feel blocked, a limiting belief, prosperity, relationships, health. And from this starting point, we're starting to dig deeper. And we start to realize, when did it start? What is it tied into? Which events in your life? When certain limiting beliefs were developed, and what's binding you to these limiting beliefs? I like to incorporate a lot of family dynamics, hidden dynamics, ancestral work to deepen that, so we understand that it's not just our stuff that we caught somewhere, but many times it has a deep root in our ancestral system. I have tons of examples, but we don't have time right now for that. But I invite all of you, to join me or some of our trained teachers for a session or two or more. If you're really interested for deeper work, knowing yourself better, freeing yourself from a bunch of stuff that is not serving you any longer, and be more connected to who you really are, and be more in peace with it.
So you can go to weeklyenergyboost.com. On our homepage, there is the link where you can learn more about Tikkun Healing and a special coupon code for our listeners for 25% off one session or even multiple sessions. So that's a very unusually large discount.
Yeah.
So take advantage of it. You don't have to book it this week. You have to book it this week, but you don't have to do it this week. And you can also gift them to people. It's such a beautiful process, not only to participate in, but I can tell you from my students who have done this work, it really, it's unbelievable how much you can accomplish when you release the stories and the barriers and the mindsets that are hindering you that you don't even see. That's one of the great gifts of this, is that you pick something to work on, but many times you're guided to something else that's actually the root cause, and you can release that and then unlock so many other things.
Well said. You need another water break.
I need another water break. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. As I mentioned before, we have a website, weeklyenergyboost.com, where you can always find out about the things that we're talking about and what we think is important for our listeners to know. You can also click the donate button on weeklyenergyboost.com and support our podcast. And as always, continue to share, like, rate, and review. It's because of our listeners that there are more listeners every week and growing. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Please.
Enjoyable.
Please. And we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.